The last resort. The Grand Council Chamber of the Galactic Confederation hung suspended in space, a crystalline structure that reflected the light of 3 nearby suns. Inside, representatives from over 2,000 civilizations argued in increasingly desperate tones. The swarm was coming. Admiral Zixtel of the Arcturian Empire, her crystalline form-shifting colors with agitation, addressed the assembly. The swarm has consumed 3 more systems in the past solar cycle. Our most advanced weapons barely slow them down. They adapt too quickly to our standardized combat protocols. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices until first speaker Ven, a gaseous being contained within an ornate environmental suit, called for order. We have exhausted all traditional options. The motion before us is whether to activate the human contingency. A horrified silence fell over the chamber. The humans were the galaxy's great oddity. When the Confederation discovered Earth 50 years ago, they found a species that by all logic should have destroyed itself. Their planet was scarred by thousands of wars, their atmosphere polluted, their nations divided. Yet somehow they had survived, even thrived. While their technology was primitive by galactic standards, their capacity for warfare was unprecedented. Absolutely not, thundered Ambassador Carax of the Silicon Collective, his crystalline matrix flickering with outrage. The humans are barbarians. Their entire history is written in blood. They still fight among themselves. Precisely, came a quiet voice. All eyes turned to Dr. Lyanna Voss, the human representative. She stood calmly at her podium, her dark skin contrasting with the white uniform of the Earth Defense Force. We fight. We adapt. We survive. Your civilizations achieve unity through technological advancement. We achieved it through necessity, through countless conflicts that forced us to evolve or die. She activated a holographic display, showing footage from Earth's history. You see barbarism. I see innovation born of desperation. Every war taught us something new. We learned to fight in every environment, with whatever tools were available. When we couldn't match our enemies in strength, we learned to outthink them. The chamber watched in silence as the display showed humans fighting across centuries, in jungles, deserts, cities, and seas, fighting with spears, with guns, with improvised weapons, always adapting, always surviving. The swarm adapts to your perfect protocols because they're predictable, Lyanna continued. But humans, we're chaos theory in action. We break rules. We try the impossible. We succeed because we don't know we can't. First speaker Ven's environmental suit swirled with contemplative patterns. You believe humans can succeed where the combined might of the Confederation has failed. Lyanna's smile was grim. You've spent millennia perfecting warfare. We've spent millennia perfecting survival. There's a difference. She paused, looking around the chamber. You've tried everything else. Now, let us handle it. Admiral Zixtel's crystalline form pulsed with resigned agreement. The motion is to formally request Earth's military intervention against the swarm. All in favor. One by one, the representatives voted. Even Carax, after long hesitation, added his consent. The motion passed unanimously. As Lyanna left the chamber, she received a message from Earth Command. Request approved. Deploying Operation Mongoose. She smiled, remembering an old Earth saying. The most dangerous animal is not the strongest or the fastest. It's the one that's willing to throw away the rulebook to survive. The swarm was about to learn why the galaxy's primitive species was also its most feared. Because when humans say they'll handle something, they don't just mean they'll fight. They mean they'll win. Unconventional methods. 6 months after Earth's intervention began, the Galactic Confederation's military commanders gathered in an emergency session aboard the flagship Eternal Light. The holographic displays showed something unprecedented. The swarm was retreating. High Commander Ixel of the Vanguard Fleet paced nervously, his insectoid form casting shifting shadows. What exactly am I looking at, Admiral Chen? Sarah Chen, commander of Earth's Expeditionary Force, stood before the alien leadership with the relaxed posture that unnerved her allies so much. "You're looking at success, Commander. The swarm has lost 12% of its territory in the past month alone." "But how?" demanded Karax. "The humans aren't using energy shields. Their ships are practically primitive. Their weapons are, he struggled to find the right word, crude. Chen offered with a slight smile. "Let me show you." She activated a tactical display. "We studied the swarm's behavior patterns. They adapt to energy weapons. Fine. We use kinetic rounds. They evolve immunity to our current ammunition. We switched to something else. Last week we loaded our rails with crystallized salt. The week before that, it was frozen carbon dioxide." The alien commanders stared in bewilderment. Ixal's antennae twitched. "You're making weapons from minerals." "We're making weapons from everything," Chen corrected. "The swarm expects ships to attack from optimal firing positions. So we don't. We attack from stupid angles. We hide ships in asteroid fields that your sensors consider too dangerous to enter. We've even started using old Earth tactics, like submarines in space." She brought up footage of a human vessel powering down completely, drifting dead in space until a swarm ship passed nearby, then suddenly powering up and attacking at point-blank range. "This is madness," Krax protested. "These tactics violate every principle of modern warfare." "Exactly," Chen said. "The swarm adapts to patterns, so we give them chaos. Every ship captain has authority to try new tactics. We're not fighting one war. We're fighting 10,000 little wars, each one different." The display shifted to show a massive swarm-high ship being taken down by what looked like primitive mining vessels. "These were obsolete mining rigs," Chen explained. "We loaded them with industrial drilling equipment and taught the crews to use them as weapons. The swarm had no defense against mining lasers because who would be crazy enough to get that close to a high ship? Humans, apparently," Ixal muttered. Ken's expression grew serious. "You've all been fighting wars of technology. We fight wars of innovation. Every human knows the story of the Trojan horse, of how a mighty city fell to a wooden box full of soldiers. We've been teaching these stories to our children for thousands of years. Stories about winning through cleverness when you can't win through strength." The tactical display updated again, showing the next phase of human operations. Krax's crystalline form flickered in alarm. "Those formations, they make no sense." "They're not supposed to," Chen agreed. "We're deploying in patterns based on Earth-forest fire behavior, hurricane movements, and predator hunting strategies. The swarm's predictive algorithms can't handle natural chaos patterns they've never encountered." A junior officer interrupted with an urgent message. Chen read it and smiled. "Speaking of chaos, Operation Thunderbird just succeeded. We just took back the Proxima sector." "How?" Ixal demanded. "We noticed the swarm uses electromagnetic fields for internal communication. So we modified old Earth electromagnetic pulse weapons, scaled them up, and basically gave their entire command structure a seizure. While they were disrupted, our ships went in with modified plasma cutters, repurposed industrial tools that the swarm had never classified as weapons." The alien commanders exchanged looks of mixed horror and amazement. This wasn't warfare as they understood it. It was systematic improvisation, a constant evolution of tactics that mirrored the very adaptability that made the swarm so dangerous. "There's an old saying on Earth," Chen said, noting their expressions. "Necessity is the mother of invention. When you can't win by being stronger, you win by being smarter. When you can't win by being smarter, you win by being crazier than your enemy can comprehend." She looked at the strategic display, where human ships were moving in patterns that resembled everything from wolf pack hunting formations to the spread patterns of viral infections. "We're not just fighting the swarm. We're teaching them fear, not of our weapons or our technology, but of our unpredictability. Because the most terrifying enemy isn't the one with the biggest guns, It's the one whose next move you can't possibly predict. The alien commanders watched in silence as another swarm fleet fell to what appeared to be repurposed garbage scows filled with industrial chemicals. Perhaps they were beginning to realize this was why humans had survived their own violent history, not despite their chaos, but because of it. Breaking protocol. The emergency meeting of the Confederation High Command was interrupted by something unprecedented. Laughter. Young alien officers were gathered around a human lieutenant who was explaining Earth military history using drinking vessels as props. So then Alexander the Great did the impossible. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez demonstrated with a coffee mug. He led his cavalry straight up the cliff face that the Persians had left unguarded because they thought no one would be crazy enough to try it. First Speaker Ven watched with growing concern as the alien officers nodded enthusiastically, their various appendages taking notes. The human infection, as conservative leaders called it, was spreading. Commander Chen, Ven's environmental suit swirled with agitation. Your species' influence is becoming problematic. Chen raised an eyebrow. Our success rate against the swarm suggests otherwise. We've reclaimed 20% of lost territory in 8 months by throwing out 10,000 years of military doctrine. Krax interrupted. Look at this. He projected a recent battle recording. A young Arcturian commander had abandoned their standard formation to hide their ships in a planet's rings, using ice fragments as camouflage, a distinctly human tactic. The ship survived, didn't it? Chen countered, and destroyed 3 swarm-high ships. That's not the point. Krax's crystalline form flickered rapidly. Your chaos is infectious. Yesterday, a Silicon Collective crew used their ship's waste disposal system as a weapon. Ah yes, Chen smiled. The garbage cannon. Very effective. The swarm never saw it coming. Before Krax could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. A massive swarm fleet had emerged from hyperspace, larger than any previously encountered. The tactical display showed hundreds of high ships, each controlling thousands of drone vessels. All ships assumed standard defense formation. Delta Ven began, but was cut off by Chen's sharp command. Belay that. All human vessels execute Operation Wildfire. Allied ships clear the sector immediately. The alien commanders watched in horror as the human fleet broke into seemingly random groups, some ships appearing to malfunction, others flying in spiral patterns that made no tactical sense. What are you doing? Ixel demanded. That formation. It's not even a formation. Exactly. Chen grinned. Watch. The human ships suddenly released what appeared to be millions of small objects. Space itself seemed to sparkle. Are those mirrors? Krax asked incredulously. Mixed with radar chaff and modified communication buoys, Chen explained. The swarm uses quantum-linked communication and visual targeting, so we're giving them sensory overload. The swarm fleet faltered, their precise formations breaking as their sensors were overwhelmed by millions of conflicting signals. That's when the human ships struck, each group using different tactics. Some rammed straight through swarm formations using reinforced hulls. Others deployed clouds of corrosive gas. One group was broadcasting what appeared to be. Is that music? Ven asked in disbelief. Wagner. Chen nodded. Flight of the Valkyries. Psychological warfare works even on hive minds if you hit the right frequencies. The alien commanders watched in stunned silence as the massive swarm fleet was torn apart by what appeared to be complete chaos, but was actually dozens of coordinated irregular warfare strategies working in concert. This is why we survive, Chen said quietly. Not because we're stronger or more advanced, but because we never forgot our primitive roots. Every human carries the legacy of countless ancestors who survived by being cleverer than their predators. A young Arcturian officer burst into the command center, her crystalline form pulsing with excitement. Commander Chen, we've modified our ship's gravity generators like you suggested. Request permission to join Operation Wildfire. Before the conservative leaders could object, Chen nodded. Granted, show them what you've learned. They watched as the Arcturian ships used their modified gravity generators to create artificial gravitational lenses, bending light around them to become virtually invisible. It was a technique borrowed from Earth's deep-sea predators, adapted to space warfare. You see, Chen gestured to the tactical display. This is evolution in action. Not just humans evolving, but our allies too. The swarm adapts to survive. We adapt to win. The battle ended with the swarm fleet in ruins, defeated by tactics that ranged from the ingenious to the seemingly insane. But the real victory was visible in the eyes of the young alien officers watching from their posts. They had learned something humans had known for millennia. Sometimes the best defense against chaos is to become chaos itself. As the command center cleared, First Speaker Ven approached Chen privately. I begin to understand. The ancient being admitted. Your species doesn't just think outside the box. You deny the existence of the box entirely. Chen smiled. There's another old Earth saying. The most dangerous person in the room is the one who looks at the impossible and says, "Watch me." The human factor. The classified reports spread through the swarm's neural network like a virus. Across their vast collective consciousness, a new emotion began to emerge. Uncertainty. For the first time in their million-year history, the swarm was experiencing something alien to their nature. Fear. Deep within the secure chambers of the Confederation Intelligence Division, Dr. Yuki Tanaka presented her findings to an assembled group of military leaders and xenobiologists. The holographic display showed swarm behavior patterns before and after human intervention. Notice the change. She pointed to the shifting patterns. The swarm used to attack in perfect geometric formations. Now they hesitate. They second-guess. They're learning to be afraid. High Commander Ixel chittered thoughtfully. They fear our weapons. No, Yuki smiled. They fear our imagination. Look at this. She brought up footage of recent battles. See how they pause before engaging human ships. They're trying to predict our actions. And failing. It's driving their collective consciousness into something approaching paranoia. The display showed a swarm fleet retreating from what appeared to be a single damaged human corvette. This ship was actually empty, Yuki explained. We leaked false reports about a new superweapon. The swarm intercepted them, but because they can never tell which human tactics are brilliant and which are insane, they had to treat the threat as real. You're weaponizing uncertainty itself, Krax realized, his crystalline form pulsing with dawning comprehension. Exactly. The swarm operates on calculated probability. But humans? Yuki brought up historical footage from Earth. We build civilizations in disaster zones. We keep pets that could kill us. We jump out of perfectly good aircraft for fun. How do you calculate the probability of what a species like that will do next? The chamber fell silent as new tactical data streamed in. The swarm was changing its entire strategic approach. Instead of relying on adaptation, they were becoming defensive, overcautious. Admiral Chen joined the presentation. We've achieved something unprecedented, she announced. The swarm is starting to question its own evolutionary superiority. They've encountered a variable they can't quantify, human insanity. She brought up a new tactical display. They've begun avoiding sectors where human ships are detected, even when they have overwhelming numerical superiority. Their collective consciousness is developing what we might call trauma responses. But how? First Speaker Ven asked. They're a hive mind. They don't experience individual fear. No, Yuki agreed, but they do experience collective uncertainty. Imagine an artificial intelligence encountering a logic problem it can't solve. Now imagine that problem keeps changing, keeps defying prediction. The swarm is experiencing the collective equivalent of an existential crisis. The display showed swarm ships actually fighting each other, their unified command structure breaking down in the face of conflicting survival protocols. Some wanted to retreat from human-controlled space entirely. Others wanted to adapt by becoming more like humans, a concept that was fracturing their very identity as a species. There's something else, Chen added. We've detected swarm units attempting to mimic human unpredictability, but they're failing because they're trying to be unpredictable in predictable ways. They're learning the wrong lesson. What do you mean? Krax asked. They think our chaos is a strategy. They don't understand that it's who we are. Chen brought up more historical footage from Earth. Look at human history. Every time we faced extinction, we survived by doing the unexpected. The swarm is trying to copy our tactics, but they can't copy our nature. Yuki highlighted neural pattern analyses from captured swarm nodes. They're experiencing cascading logical failures. Their entire existence is based on being able to adapt to any threat. But how do you adapt to a species that thrives on practices that should lead to extinction? The chamber erupted in discussion as the implications became clear. The swarm, for the first time, was facing an enemy it couldn't understand, and therefore couldn't defeat. There's an old Earth story, Yuki said quietly, about a warrior who faced an unbeatable opponent. Instead of fighting conventionally, he threw sand in his enemy's eyes. The swarm is that unbeatable opponent, and humanity is the sand they never saw coming. As if to emphasize her point, new reports flooded in. A human fleet had just routed a swarm armada by broadcasting corrupted versions of the swarm's own neural patterns back at them. Psychological warfare against a hive mind, something that should have been impossible. We're not just winning battles anymore, Chen concluded. We're changing the way the galaxy understands warfare. The swarm evolved to be the perfect adapting organism. Humanity evolved to be perfectly unpredictable. And in the end, chaos is beating order at its own game. Evolution of fear. The Grand Council chamber was different now. Where once the representatives of 2,000 civilizations had sat in rigid hierarchical order, now the formations were fluid, adaptable. A year of human influence had changed more than just military doctrine. First Speaker Ven stood before the assembly, his environmental suit displaying patterns never before seen in Confederation history, chaos mathematics derived from human fractal patterns. The swarm has requested peace talks, he announced. The chamber erupted not in the orderly debate of the past, but in a cacophony of overlapping voices, another change brought by human influence. Admiral Chen and Dr. Tanaka exchanged knowing looks from their position near the center of the chamber. They fear us that much? Krax asked, his crystalline form shifting through complex patterns of disbelief. Not just us, Chen replied. They fear what we represent. Show them, Yuki. Dr. Tanaka activated the central holographic display, showing the latest intelligence from swarm territory. Their once perfect geometric structures were changing, becoming organic, irregular. They're trying to evolve in response to us, but they're tearing themselves apart in the process. The display showed swarm ships attempting to mimic human tactics, resulting in catastrophic failures. They don't understand, Yuki explained, that our strength isn't in our tactics. It's in our ability to discard tactics entirely when they don't work. A new signal interrupted the presentation, a direct transmission from the swarm itself. The collective consciousness of a billion organisms spoke with one voice, but that voice now carried something never before heard in their communications: uncertainty. We seek understanding. The swarm's message began. Your species defies evolutionary logic. You should have destroyed yourselves. Instead, you have become something we cannot quantify. Chen stepped forward. You want to understand humans. Here's the truth. We're not the strongest, the fastest, or the most advanced. We're the ones who looked at the impossible and decided to try it anyway. We're the ones who turned our weaknesses into strengths. The swarm's response was immediate. This defies optimization. Your species intentionally maintains inefficient variables. You preserve chaos when evolution demands order. Exactly, Yuki interjected. We preserve chaos because we know something you don't. True adaptation isn't about becoming perfect. It's about maintaining the ability to change completely when you need to. The chamber fell silent as images appeared showing how human influence had spread beyond military applications. Alien societies that had stagnated for millennia were suddenly innovating again. Young aliens were questioning traditional methodologies, combining ancient knowledge with human unpredictability. "Look at what you've done," First Speaker Ven said to Chen, his suit displaying patterns of wonder. "You haven't just defeated the swarm. You've awakened the galaxy." The swarm's next transmission carried something new, not just uncertainty, but a hint of curiosity. "We request, teachers, we wish to understand this human factor. Our evolution has reached a terminus. We must change." Chen smiled. "Now that's something I never thought I'd hear from a hyper-evolved hive mind. Humility." The council chamber transformed into a celebration as the implications became clear. The war was over, not through destruction, but through transformation. The swarm, the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced, had encountered something more powerful than their perfect adaptation: human imperfection. There's an old Earth story, Yuki told the assembled representatives, about a reed and an oak tree. The oak was mighty and rigid, while the reed was weak but flexible. When the storm came, the oak broke while the reed survived. Humanity is that reed. We never tried to be the strongest. We just made sure we could bend without breaking. As the celebration continued, Chen received a message from Earth Command. New reports were coming in from the galaxy's edges, strange signals, unknown phenomena. The galaxy was changing, becoming more chaotic, less predictable. "Ready for another impossible problem?" she asked Yuki with a grin. "Always," Yuki replied. After all, that's the real human factor, not just solving impossible problems, but actively seeking them out. The galaxy was entering a new age. The rigid hierarchies of the past were giving way to something new, something that combined the best of order and chaos. And at the center of it all was humanity, teaching the cosmos what they had known all along. The most powerful force in the universe isn't strength or technology, or even perfect adaptation. It's the ability to look at the impossible and say, "Fine, I'll handle it."